All right, let's talk about often overlooked sources of startup funding. Hi, everyone. Hope you're having a good day. Today, we're going to talk about sources of startup funding that are oftentimes overlooked by startup founders. So, what you normally see with a startup is they rush ahead with the idea that they need to raise funding from a startup investor, angel investors, venture capitalists. By now, if you've watched my channel, you should understand the difference between those two. If not, I'm not doing my job. So, please check out some of the other videos. But what we're going to talk about today is places that you can look for startup funding outside of the things that you will think of that come to mind quickly. So I'm going to run through a couple of them for you and share with you why I think you should consider them. Now, again, if you have watched my channel, hopefully you've learned some of the common things that I bring up. So the first place I'm going to tell you to look for startup funding that is oftentimes overlooked is by looking in the mirror at yourself. So I'm a big fan of startup founders risking some of their own capital when they launch a business. It's hard to ask an investor to risk their own capital if you're not willing to risk some of yours. Now, if you don't have a lot of discretionary income to put into your business, that's okay. Even if it's just a couple $100 for a logo or a logo through fiverr.com or paying to have your business incorporated through a LegalZoom or with your local attorney or whatever it is, putting some of your own capital at risk is really critical to show investors that you believe in what you're doing. And it will probably make you feel pretty good because it shows to yourself sort of this momentum and that you're accomplishing things. So I always tell people, look in the mirror first when you're thinking about capital to start a business, whether it's a high growth startup or a lifestyle business, it doesn't matter. Put some of your own capital at risk, whatever you can afford to lose, which is a key point. The second place I want you to think about looking for startup funding in places that aren't always thought about early on is through corporate venture capital. So, according to Barron's, there are about 1,800 corporate venture arms, meaning large corporations, think of Apples and Googles and things like that. These corporations that inside the company, they have venture capital arms that invest in ideas and other things. So in 2019, there were 1,800 of those in the US that are investing money. Matter of fact, about half the deals in 2019 had corporate venture capital funding inside of them, right? Which is an impressive, important statistic to think about. So this is a place that people are overlooking it. There are plenty of opportunities to partner with corporations, have their venture arm invest in what you're doing, and things like that. Now, one of the reasons this category is overlooked is because a lot of people don't think of large corporations being involved with startups. They think of the bureaucracy that comes with a large startup and all of those challenges. But I would tell you that they do have their benefits because large corporations have typically have lots of excess capital. They have other resources you might be able to leverage. So partnering with a startup venture capital firm is a really, really good place that is often overlooked by a lot of startup founders. The third place I want you to think about is in pre-sales. So it's similar to the idea of crowdfunding when you pre-sell a product. Traditional business models think about the idea of designing a product, building a product, and then they bother selling it. And smart companies flip that on the end. They sell it first, then they design it, and then they build it. And here's an example of how that works. It's a very simplistic example, but just think about all the webinars that you see being offered online. All these sign up for here, and we're going to talk about 10 ways to invest your money, or we're going to talk about 10 ways to build a prototype. All these different webinars that exist. Well, what you may not know is a lot of those sort of online webinar gurus do things really intelligently. They don't build their presentation out of the box before they've even got people registered for the webinar. What they do is they'll set up a landing page, get people registered, and then they email those people and say, what are questions that you'd love to see answered in this webinar? And when they get that feedback, then they go design the presentation and build the presentation based on those questions. So they look like they're absolutely brilliant because they're answering all the top questions that people have. With your startup, you can do the same thing. Sell the concept first to early adopters, then design it based on the feedback you get from them and build it. And you can pre-sell some products and get some capital coming in. Now, it may not be, hopefully you sell a lot, but it may not be thousands upon thousands of dollars, but you can then take some of that capital, reinvest back in the business and keep going, right? So pre-sales are often overlooked by people. They think they have to come out with this, perfectly beautiful solution and product before people are going to buy it. That's not always the case. That's the whole point of an MVP, a minimum viable product, is putting it out into the marketplace so that you can get customer feedback and sell some of it along the way. So pre-sales is a great place to look. The last one I'm going to share with you is similar to the corporate VC points, but it's just joint ventures, right? So entrepreneurs have to be masters at doing what's called marshaling resources. And those resources don't always have to be your own resources. They can be resources that are owned by other people. And joint ventures allow you to tap into resources owned by other people or other companies. And you can leverage them through these joint ventures. And those resources don't always have to be money. They could be maybe someone, a business is synergistic with yours, and they have equipment that you really need, and they have downtime with that equipment, and they're willing to partner with you to let you use that equipment. That's money you didn't have to spend. So joint ventures allow you to marshal resources that you don't have, and in many instances may not have to pay for. Maybe there's some sort of bartering you can do. I gave you this example of using their equipment during their downtime. Maybe you've got some downtime on a piece of equipment that they need and you can trade, right? And so that's one way to joint venture. You can also joint venture with existing companies that have the type of clients that you would like to get in front of. Maybe a simple example that is not software based is, if you're a commercial lender and, attorneys tend to be good referral sources for those folks because they have small business owners that are their clients, you can joint venture and work together to grow each other's business. So joint ventures are a place that a lot of people overlook startup funding. So there are a ton of ways to secure startup funding. Don't get trapped in this mindset that you have to go out and get an investor right away, or you're going to go get a venture capitalist. I had someone message me yesterday and say, hey, we've got this great idea. We need your help raising $5 million from venture capitalists. Well, why are they jumping straight to the idea of venture capitalists? There are all kinds of other ways to fund a business. Some are appropriate, some are not. By the way, you're not going to raise $5 million straight out of the gate if you have never raised a seed round. So think about being creative. Part of being an entrepreneur is being creative and coming up with other ways to do things. Don't just jump to the easy answer. Until next time, I hope you find your voice. Take care.